Good morning, and thanks for joining this month's GP Tips and Tricks Grouping and Editing Reports Management Reporter webinar. I'm Dee Bowers, and I'll be your moderator. So before we jump in, I'm going to briefly go over how to use the webinar pane. Go ahead and advance the slide here. There we go. So on the right side of your window, you should see an orange arrow. If you toggle that arrow, you'll be able to toggle the pane between the open and closed position. You'll also see a small chat window. Please feel free to type in your questions throughout the webinar. We'll answer those at the end of our presentation during the Q&A session as time allows. Another thing just to note is there's a small chat window. Please feel free to type in your questions again throughout, and once we are in the demo session, we might even address those as they come up. So on to audio settings. Just quickly double check and make sure that you have the correct audio settings selected. If you're calling in from your telephone, please make sure you have the Use Telephone selection. And then if you're using your computer, please make sure you've selected the Use Mic and Speakers option. One other thing to note is that our webinar is being recorded today, and we'll send you an email within 48 hours with the link to this recording and the webinar slide deck. And so now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our presenters. First, we have Megan Fall, a senior consultant within our GP practice here at Armanino. Megan is a Microsoft certified professional in GP financials, supply chain, and implementation. I'm also pleased to introduce Sahara Ahmed, consultant within our GP practice. Sahara is a Microsoft certified professional in GP financials, inventory, and order processing. So it's great to have you both here, and with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Megan.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're going to go over a few things regarding Management Reporter, just some of the basics. So we're going to talk about how to group reports, how to use the Management Reporter wizard to create some basic reports, and how to do some basic edits. And I will do a demo of each of these different points, and we will go through an actual wizard entry from start to finish. And at the end, of course, we'll do your questions and answers. So we're going to start things off with a quick polling question. Should come up on your screen. There we go. Just wanted to see how comfortable are you with using Management Reporter. Just make your selection, and we'll give it about, I'll say 30 seconds. Few more seconds. All right, let's go ahead and show our results. Okay, so the majority have never seen MR before, so welcome, and hopefully you will enjoy your first look at Management Reporter. And then we did have a few that said they can do basic edits, and at least a few that actually design their own reports. So this is going to be focused fairly on the more basic edits, but hopefully you will get something out of the grouping or some of the other bits and pieces that we'll go through. So moving on to our actual content for today. Oops, sorry, one too far. Okay, so the first topic is to group Management Reporter reports. And just a quick note, I will go through these slides fairly quickly, but then I will go to the demo and I will show each of these in depth from start to finish. So for grouping Management Reporter reports, it allows you to run several reports at the same time. The steps are fairly simple. You just simply go to the Report Group section, you click New, you click Add to select the reports that you want to include in this list, and then you use the up and down, move down buttons to toggle and reorder your reports. And once you're done, you just save it, and then you click Generate. So I'll move along to show you those screenshots as well. So when you click Generate, it does prompt you one last time, and this prompt says Override Report Date. That allows you to override the date that is saved on the report so that all of them print with the same report date. So let's say someone had run an individual report for July of 2013, but you have it in your report group. So when you print the report group and you select this override report date, you give it the base period of December 12 and the year 2013. That will override that previously saved July date so that you don't have to worry about your reports coming out with a bunch of different dates selected. So that's a very handy little feature. Okay, then on to Report Wizard. So Report Wizard is a tool to allow you to quickly design a series of financial statements. It has options for balance sheet, income statement, and trial balance. For income statement, there's actually several different versions you can choose from. And then here are the steps. It is located under Tools in Management Reporter. It's also on your menu as this little wand icon. Looks like it has stars shooting out of it. So that's the Report Wizard. Once you've selected your template, you're going to add the sections. Now this is true for the balance sheet and the income statement. The trial balance does not actually have sections. It's one line by description for the account numbers. So only the balance sheet and the income statement will ask you to set your sections and add accounts for each of those sections. So once you've done that, you can reorder the sections if you would prefer them in a different order. And then you can preview the report to verify that you like the setup, and you can select your report structure. So report structure means that you're just doing the consolidated summary report. This is not broken down by other segments. So if you have a segment that's by department and you want to have a multi-tiered structure for your report, you would want to select the multiple based on segment. So it's similar to having a tree structure because it's going to have the summary report, but it'll also have one report per, let's say, department code segment. Okay. And again, of course, you would save and generate your report. So this is just to give you a screenshot, a visual of what the Report Wizard looks like. And you can see here the balance sheet, the 3 income statement options, and the monthly trial balance option. Okay. Then we go on to, so this is also just a quick, more visual breakdown of the steps to go through for creating your report and Report Wizard. This is mainly if you wanted something to print off and just have available for reminding yourself of what the steps are. This is a really good visual structure for it. Okay, so basic edits in Management Reporter. So I just wanted to give you a quick look at what the typically requested report edits are from the support desk. So we get a lot of calls for modifications to report building blocks, things like if you've increased your chart of accounts, you need to make sure that those accounts get added to the rows and the trees. Sometimes that requires new subtotals to be added to your row formats. Or if you are expanding the scope of your report and you want to add additional columns, things like a prior year to date or a variance calculation column. Those kinds of things are typically requested through the support desk. We also just wanted to mention when you're considering modifying your reports in Management Reporter, you just want to be very aware that you should not be editing any report that could be in use. So before you just start editing reports, you might want to just send a note out to everybody in your group that these are under construction, please do not run them without checking with you, that kind of thing. So another just along the same lines is that rows, trees, and columns can be used by multiple reports. They're not report specific. So if you just have a basic, month-to-date column structure, that might be used in 5 or 6 different reports. And so if you decide to edit that, you can't just check on one specific report to see if it's being used. You have to consider that any of those reports might be in use. So you just would want to keep track of that and just let people know. Usually if you give people notice that, for the next hour these reports are not available, then that takes care of things. All right, moving on to our demo. So, and again, please feel free, if you have any questions, you can start submitting them. I'm going to go through the basic demo. However, I just want to, if you have anything that comes in, we could potentially go through it through the demo. And if a relevant question comes through, I will take it into consideration. Okay. All right, so hopefully everybody can see my screen fairly well. And just starting off with the report groups. So as I mentioned, report groups is on the menu. You just simply click report groups and it will pull it up in the heading here. So you hit new and then add, and it will bring up the list of all of your reports. So we're going to select, let's do balance sheet summary, P&L summary, current year to date, and I'm going to do trial balance summary. All right, and I'm clicking on each of these using the control left click just to select individual ones altogether. And so now let's say I really would prefer my trial balance to come first. So I'm going to use the move up button to put that up into the top slot. So now I've got it set up the way I want. I'm also going to change my, my dates. So this is where we set that date for the override. I'm going to use December 2013. Okay, and once you're done setting everything the way you want it, you're going to hit save. And I'm going to call this webinar report group. So we have our very own. Okay, and then you would simply select it, click generate. I am not going to do so because with 3 reports it will take longer than I want to sit around and wait for it to go. But as soon as you hit click generate, that would be when it would pop up and prompt you about that. Do you want to override the report dates? Okay, so from here we'll move on to the wizard. As I mentioned, the wizard is either this icon here, it's the little wand with the stars, or you can get to it through the tools menu. And for our demo, I'm going to use the balance sheet, but I just want to show you if I click on trial balance, watch what happens to the sections on the left. It gets rid of all of the sectioning and adding accounts because the trial balance simply takes all available accounts and goes. So it skips a few steps. So we'll go through the balance sheet together. We'll hit next, and this is where you define your sections. So the list it provides for you, these are the default sections that it will provide you on your balance sheet. So we'll start with cash, and you would just go through your list of accounts, and I'm going to select, and by the way, just so you know, the code is the main account segment. So whatever GP is designated as the main account segment, I believe in Fabricam it's segment 2. And that is what's determined as the account code. All right, so let's grab our cash accounts. And again, shift and click will grab whole sections for you. And then you just say add to put it into the selected dimensions list. So you do that for each of your sections. I'm going to quickly run through these. There's our end accounts receivable right there. Oh, nope, we actually need to grab a few other things too, don't we? Inventory. Inventory ends. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that's our current assets. Sorry, you can kind of tell I'm not an accountant by training. So property, plant, and equipment, you'll see here every other one is the depreciation. There is actually another section for depreciation, so I'm going to select only the actual, equipment accounts for this particular section here. And I'll include the clearing account in this one. And leasehold. All right. Add those, and cumulative depreciation, we'll go back and get the rest. All right. I think that's all of our assets. So we'll go on to liabilities and grab up all of our payables. Got quite a few in this one. Oop, almost. Okay, I'm going to say it ends there. And since this is just a demo, please bear with me if I select something that you feel is wrong. I am not actually an accountant, so I'm grabbing what I can think of. All right, I believe that should do for liabilities. Equity is our common stock and paid in. And then net income is retained earnings. Okay, so there we go. Everything that's left in here should be P&L type accounts. So we'll move on to the next section. So this is where you could edit your sections if you wanted to. So let's say you would prefer things to be in alphabetical order, not in the order of the account number. So we'll move Australia up. We can move New Zealand down. And we would just continue rearranging until you would be happy with the order in which things are presented. So that, and then it will also just show you the different sections along with their subtotals. Each section gets a subtotal, and then there's the subtotal for total assets, such as here, total liabilities, and total equity. Okay? So just the basic sections that you would normally expect to see on a balance sheet. Okay, and then this is the actual preview, so you can see it's going to give you a single column. Here, I'll move it down to make it a little easier to see. And it's by month. So this is a by month. So this is where I would say that you might run this report through the wizard, and then you might add a couple of extra columns to it if you wanted a year-to-date or a prior month or a 6-month spread. You could do that too. Okay, so after our preview, now we have to choose our structure. This is where you could do the create multiples based on a segment. So if you have a department segment or a cost center segment, you can select from the drop-down. Now, again, because in Fabricam segment 2 is considered the main account segment, that is not listed as an available selection for your multiple reports based on segment, because you wouldn't be sectioning by that segment. So let's say if segment 1 were our department segment, we would select that and hit next, and this is where you name it, and you would set the date, then save. So again, we're going to call this the webinars balance sheet. Okay. And again, I'm going to say that this is actually going to run for 12/2013. All right, and I'm not going to generate because, again, it would just take much too long to do. Okay. All right, so we're finished with that. And once it finishes, you'll see it will show up under your report definitions wherever it sits within the alphabetical list. Okay, so on to basic edits. All right, so I'm going to use this trial balance detail as my subject for our for our basic edits. To start with, we'll go to the rows. Now in this case, I've set up a scenario where we have receivables from all of our different locations: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, on and on and on. Now we have just opened a new store in China. So we have a new location in China, and we need to add an accounts receivable that we've just created. So to do this, you simply select the line or the spot that you want to add it to. So I want it to go between 940 and 970. So I right-click and I say Insert Row, and that pops it in. Now we just simply need to name it. And as you can see, all of them require a financial dimension, which is listed over here. So to add your financial dimension, you can either double-click, or you'll see there's a little ... ellipse button in the corner. It's kind of hard to see, but it is there. And if you clicked on that, it would open up the exact same thing. So segment 2 is our main account segment. So that's what we want to enter our number under. And if you double-click on the account segment, it will pop up, and then you open up the ellipse, and you could just simply select here. So if you wanted to simply do a search, my new account number is 1278, so I could do 12, and it will continue to update until you, let's see, why don't I have it here? I did just enter this. Okay, well, apparently my demo has slight issues. There should be a 1278. However, we'll just, to keep things moving, we'll just use Singapore and assume that it's China for now. Okay, so once you've selected your new segment that you're adding, you say OK. That'll pop it in, and there it will show up. So that would be a basic how to add an account to your row format. Now, something else we can look at is subtotals. So this is a trial balance, so there's not too many subtotals that happen on a trial balance, but I can just give you a brief look at how the totals are set up. So in this particular instance, we call something a balance check. And what it does is it totals up everything, and in a trial balance, everything should total to 0. So if you do a straight total of all lines, it should be 0. And so that's the idea behind this. The related rows and units. So what this says is TOT means total of other rows. So that tells you that this is a total line. And then your selected rows tells you what are you totaling up. What are you summing? So in this case it says row code 100 to row code 760. So that's looking at the row codes here. And as we scroll back up, you can see what 100 to 760 is. 100 is the first, and 760 is to here, which is not a good one. So we would actually want to update that to show a total of all lines. So we would want it to say to 9760, like that. And so it's simple. You just type it in. The semicolon there, that indicates that it's a it's like using in Excel. If you do the semicolon on the rows or on your fields, it sums all of those between the beginning number and the ending number. And so that's how that works. So that would be entering a subtotal. Okay, so I know there's plenty of other edits that we could be doing on, oh, sorry, one more thing I wanted to just discuss since we're here. Normal balance. Quite a bit of things so all of your liabilities accounts should be, they should have a normal credit balance. So when something has a normal credit balance, you can enter it in this F column here. I'm just trying to bring up, find my, here we go, payables. So you can double click and select C, and it just simply means that the sign will be reversed on the account so that it does not show as a negative value. Or you can simply just type in, capital C and hit enter, and then that will, and you can, if you do copy and paste all the way down, you can very quickly update all of your liabilities to show as a credit normal balance. Print control is another thing that you can add. Print control, here I'll show you the options. You can have a non-printing row. If you have a calculating row, something that's in there just to be useful for a calculation, but you don't want it actually to show up on the report, you can add a non-printing row. However, the ones that tend to be the most popular are suppressing row if it's zero amount, or leave zero columns blank. So instead of having zeros all over the place, you just have blank lines. Those two are by far the most common that are used. So we would select that, say OK, and that would pop it in. All right, so those are the primary things I would want to show you on the row format. Let's see. Sahar, please feel free to pop in if you see a question that looks like I need to address it as I go.
Okay. We have quite a few questions that came in already.
I see that, yeah. Okay, so here's a good one. Selecting multiple segments for report variations. So you can absolutely select multiple segments when you're entering a line. So let's say, so we were on a detail, and that's why everything is individual. However, let's look at the P&L summary. I'll pull that up. And that should have more summary. So here's a few that would show you what it looks like when you do a sum line. So it's the same, it's the same idea that you give it a label, and then you come over to your link to financial dimension, you double click, and if you go into this segment, so when we selected the first one, we only had a from amount, a from selection. We did not have a to selection. So this would give you the first value, first account number to look at, and then the last account number to look at. So it will include anything that's between that range in that line, okay, on your report. So that would be how you would enter a select multiple segments at once for a line on a row format. Okay, hopefully that covers. And if I didn't quite answer that question, please feel free to submit another one, and I can follow up with you. Okay, so that's.
Why does it take so long for Management Reporter to load?
Well, that could be a few different things. That could be either the server that it's running on. Anything that's slow can always be something to do with the server not being robust or a connection problem. But if it's actually the application itself, if you have a large number of databases, Management Reporter can take a while because that's a pretty big program to run if you've got a lot of databases. If you have only 2 or 3, it shouldn't be running slow. If you've got 15, 20, 30 different databases, it's going to take it a little bit of time just to access all of those and get running. Okay, I'm going to hold off on other questions for the moment just so we can move on to the columns and get to trees before we're done. Okay, and I'm not going to say these. Okay, so just looking at the columns, we're going back to our original tester, which is the trial balance detail report, and looking at the column structure. So the column for this one has, it has a calendar month to date, and it has a year to date column. So let's say if we want to add a prior month column, you right click on the column, or so again it's where do you want it to go between. So I want it between B and C. So I would click on C, and it's going to insert a column before C, ahead of C. So I just right click and go to insert column. That pops one in. And to set these, this @ symbol means that it's a dynamic header. So it's going to pull whatever the current period, calendar, month name is. So this is, we're in March. So if I were to run this report as of the current date, it would give me March as the header in B column. So for C, I want to do a similar thing. So I'm going to double click in the header, and I'm going to say insert auto text, and I want month name. Okay, and it's going to tell me where do I want this. I want it in the C column, and I do not want it to be underlined. Okay, so that should pop that in. What doesn't it like? I think it just says some, okay, we just have to finish filling it out. Okay, so then for column type, FD means financial dimension. So that's actually pulling the amounts from the financial dimension, just like we set up in the row format. Okay, and that pops in some basic assignments. Book code means that's using the real data, not budgetary data. So another thing you could do is you could put a budget column in here. And in that case, you would actually select the specific budget, like if it's a 2014 budget, you would select that budget, and it would use those numbers instead of your actual numbers. But this is what's being pulled directly from GP, from the GL. And then fiscal year, we'll start there. Base means current. So if you enter this as base year, it means current year. So in that case, it would be 2014 would be current year, base year. So for period, you can see our column B is base period. That is the current period. We want column C to actually be prior period. So we need to do base minus. Okay, so this entry right here is going to say period before base period. We select that, and then we're just going to remove the pound sign and put in 1 because we just want it to be the single prior period. Okay, and then periods covered is just where you tell it if this is a year-to-date or a monthly periodic column. So in this case, it's periodic. Okay, so that would be the entry for creating a prior month column. Another thing that you can do is you can add, we get a lot for variance columns. So what is the change between current period and prior period? So in that case, I'm just going to type in my header for this one, variance. And for column type, I'm going to select calc for calculated column. So that doesn't pull data from GP, so it has no actual book. And what I do is I go down to the spot for formula here. And in this case, I'm just going to say, so our variance is going to be, let's see, prior minus current. So let's do that. Let's do C column minus B column. And that's my formula. Okay? So that would be how you would create a calculated column. And again, I just wanted to point out that even the columns have print control options. So if, let's say, here's another thing that people like is for print control, if it's a 0 column or blanks, you can suppress the column. That's a big one. And then for reporting unit, that's one that people like to add to their column formats a lot too. Reporting unit it links it to links a specific column. So let's say column B. It links a specific column to your tree. So the tree is divided by, let's say, segment 1 department codes. So if you had a column for each department code, you would want to enter your reporting unit to select from that tree. I'm not going to do that because I don't think we have it set up in this, but I just wanted to point out that you can link your columns to your tree format. Okay? So that's, let's see if there's any column related questions. All right. I don't see any at this moment, so I'm going to keep going and cover trees. And no, I'm not going to save the changes. Okay, so in this particular report, it has a department level tree. So in Management Reporter, you can decide not to use a tree and then it just takes it away. Or if you do select a reporting tree, you can then select from any available tree that you have created. So this particular report uses a department tree. So if we look there, okay, so the tree has two different windows that you want to look at. The first is the tree definition, where it actually shows you the hierarchical level of the report structure. And this is a very simplistic department structure. I know many of you out there have departments that have sub-departments, and so you might actually have multiple levels. So the first thing I want to show you before I actually get into editing the tree itself, let's say that service and installation should actually be part of sales. That's a sub-department. So we want to highlight the item, right-click on it, and then you come down to these options. The grayed out one is Promote Reporting Unit, and the one that we want is Demote. So when I click Demote, it pushes it underneath Sales. So what will happen is when we run this report, you'll have your consolidated summary of everything, and then you will have individual reports for each unit below. However, the sales report will actually also include a summary of the service and installation segment as well. So that's a nice feature too. And then we can also, let's say you accidentally demoted a unit. So you didn't really want consulting to be under sales. Let's say it's gotten too big and it needs to be its own department now. You would just do the same thing, right click on it and find Promote Reporting Unit, and that moves it back into the proper hierarchical order so that it is on the same level as sales. And so you could simply collapse sales so that you can only see the level 2 hierarchy items. Okay, so that's the first thing to look at when you're modifying a tree structure, is the hierarchy of segments. Then we move over to the actual report itself, or the list of units and their setup. So the first thing you want to look at is company. Now, if you have multiple companies, it might just be easiest, especially if the departments are across multiple companies, like if each company has an administration department and each one of them has an accounting department and a sales department, then you would just use this @any company ID. Otherwise, you want to specify which company the department is in. And that's where you would just simply double click on it, and it gives a drop down menu with the available selections, and you can select @any if you want all companies to be included, or you can select the specific company. All right, then the unit name is what is pulled directly from the segment description in GP. However, it's not always the nicest looking, and so the unit description is what you can manually type in, and that is usually tidier, and that's what actually shows up on the report. When you generate it, it'll show you that that's the labeling that's used. And then, of course, as everything is, it's all linked back to a segment ID. So in this case, in Fabricam, the department segment is segment 1. So if you have added a segment, let's say you created a new department and segment 550, so it's a sub department under consulting would be 550. And then you would just simply do the same way as editing the row structure. You highlight the row. You say insert reporting unit. You assign it a company. Give it a label. So let's say we've decided to do multi-country. So we're going to include Canada Consulting. And then you would just say same on the unit description, and then you would add your dimension. So you would just, same thing, go find your new segment, select it. We're just going to use this one as our temporary. Say OK, and that plugs it in as the dimension. Now again, you can get extremely fancy if you wanted to and link it to a specific, link a tree segment to a specific row definition. However, that gets very, very complicated and gets well outside the scope of what we want to cover here today. We're just going to talk about the basics. We might do a more advanced version of this webinar later on. But we just wanted to show you. And then, of course, you could come back and do your demotion to move Canada Consulting under the regular consulting. Okay, so that's the basics on editing a report. So let's see if the questions can come off of the demo. Let's see. We have a lot of questions about signing in to Management Reporter and password sensitivity. Sahar, why don't you pick a question that you'd like me to answer?
Let's see. How about I only have 10 lines to list my segments. What happens if I need to add another line for additional segments?
Ah, okay. So if you're in, let's go back to our row format. That's where this happens a lot. Row format, so let's say you've run out of space. You're all the way down at the bottom and you've run out of space. So the easiest thing to do is if you highlight a bunch of them and you say insert row, it will start giving you more. The other thing, and so that'll help you if you want to add bulk, but let's say you're just adding lines, you're going along, and you get down there, it should let you just move down, but apparently it's not. So I would just suggest doing the select and insert, and it will keep adding in bulk. And that will boost up your numbers. Okay? Even if it runs out of row codes, it will continue to add. And then all you would want to do if you need to reorder your row codes, you can find that in Edit. And it says renumber rows. And you just tell it what to start at and what your increments are. And you say OK. And it's going to renumber everything for you. And the best part is if you've done a bunch of insertions and your numbers are all off now, it will even update the totals, the total rows where we said the start and the end Apparently, though, it likes to jump back. Okay, 970. That's the one we want. But it will even update the row IDs listed in on the total lines as well by doing that. So, okay. All right, sorry, I'm just looking through and see if I can get a couple more that would be good in the demo.
I was just going to go ahead and touch on a little bit of the security part. As far as management reporter goes, security is broken down into 3 functions. So there's company access, and then there's management reporter access, and then there's report access. So we can go a little bit deeper into that one if you want to go ahead and send us an email about that. Megan, there's another one about where can I get more info on trees?
On trees. Well, if you have specific questions, you can email us at help@amllp.com, and I can answer any. We can, find somebody to answer any specifics you have on modifying trees. There is some amount of help given just within Management Reporter. It's very generic. I don't highly recommend it, but if you just have want some quick information, you can, let's see, okay, you can use this help button, and there's one for working on trees right here, report tree definitions. You can expand that, and it gives you a little bit more information on just very generally about trees. But if you have specific questions, feel free to email us, and we can find somebody, or if you want a more in-depth tutorial, we can have our consultants look at doing a training session. Let's see, we did get one, we got a question about how do you know if a report is being edited or is being used. So if you are you're going to your report dimensions and you select a report and you open it, no, I don't want to choose. If you open the report, and it will prompt you with a little message, a warning message that says something like, this report has been checked out by another user. It might even tell you which user. But that prompt lets you know that somebody is using it. It will continue to let you, you can say okay and it'll let you in so that you can use it too, but it will let you know that it's being checked out. So that would just be a hint that maybe you should quickly poll everybody around you and see if anybody is running the report before you start to do a modify. Let's see, another good question. Okay. Oh, and we had just one more question about how to prevent somebody from editing your report. You can you can password lock your report rows and columns and trees if you don't want anybody to be able to do any edits to them. So only somebody who would have the password would be able to do an edit to those reports. Okay, I am being told that we are well over our time limit, so I'm unfortunately going to have to say that I will get back to the people who I didn't get a chance to answer your questions on. We have all the questions, so we will try to get back to you very shortly with them. Okay, thank you guys very much. I think we're just going to go back to our slides really fast just to do a wrap-up. So just to recap, the takeaways from this webinar are that you can run multiple reports at once using the report groups, that Management Report Wizard can be used to run basic or to create basic financial statements, and we just did a little bit on doing some common edits for the reports. If you do need more specifics on the report edits, we would be happy to work with you through the support. And we've got our contact information up here. So you can contact us at help@amllp.com, and we'd be more than happy to take a look at any specifics that you have about report edits on management reporting.
Yeah, so this is a really popular topic. Thank you guys so much for joining. There's a lot of questions we still have to answer, so we're going to go ahead and get to those offline. But in the meantime, we'll think about having a follow-up session too. So thanks again for joining us, and as you exit, just if you could take a moment and fill out our survey and let us know how we're doing, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you Megan and Sahir for all your help, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.